and then I'll go through the intro. Hi, this is Dr. Charley Ferrer, and today is January 6th, 2014. Yahoo! I love New Year's. I really do. This is like my favorite time in the year, and it's also the only holiday that I can remember. So I always think it's funny because I forget birthdays, Christmas, things like that. It's just I work through it, or I just don't remember what days they are. And so, but New Year's is my favorite time, and it's always a wonderful way of saying, starting new. And so I thought it was wonderful that today we have Paige Matthews, awesome author, is with us today, and she's going to be talking about her books and about talking at BDSM Writers Con, that she's doing a couple of workshops there as well, and we're going to talk a whole bunch about sex and idiot-proofing your love life and your sex life and every other life that there is out there. And I'll say, Paige, hi, how are you?
Good, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Doing great. It's wonderful to have you here. And I found out you're also up on the Northwest. I'm in the wrong state here, but you're also in the East Coast where I am. And so, did you get hit with the storm as well?
We got the storm on Thursday. We got about 8 inches, and then now we have those bitter cold temperatures.
Yeah, I've been really good because I haven't had to go outside because my car got messed up when I did the Dr. Oz show. My car stopped working.
Oh, no.
And so here I am, like, stuck at his front door with no way to get home because my car wouldn't start. And so it's been 3 weeks since my car wouldn't start. And so I've been doing the, honey, can you go and get the groceries? Can you bring them to the house? And so depending on other people to be, they've been wonderful in getting stuff for me. So, but I don't know how to be without a car. And I hate public transportation. So I really do. Public transportation is evil. I mean, it's great that it exists because you can get where you need to go, but it's evil. It's the worst thing. It took me 5 hours to get home from New York City, like on the 21st. It took me 5 hours. All the buses kept going by, and they wouldn't stop. And I got to where I became a crazy lady because after, I was trying to be really cool. An hour, okay, I'm fine. I understand buses are full. But when it started hitting an hour and a half, 2 hours, I got really pissed off and I stepped into the middle of the road. And I did the Chinese thing where you stand there and stop the tank. I stood in front of the bus and I'm like, no, you're not leaving me. You're the 5th bus that's trying to leave without me and I just want to get back on the island. So they called the cops on the crazy lady standing in front of the bus with her hand out, going, open the door, I just want to get on. I'm usually not that crazy. It's just I'm allowed once a year to get wacko. Okay, so that's the crazy me. So I want to talk about you. So I want to talk a little bit about and I put up some questions here because we had some questions from everyone. And so why don't you tell us a little bit about your books and what they're about and, and what you're working on now, because I know Mr. Fox wanted to know that.
He did. Well, I currently have 2 series out. One of my series is a BDSM theme series, and it revolves around dominance and submissives in a fictitious club in Boston. Each book is written about a different dom and submissive, but we do get the crossover in the characters, so you always get to kind of see what's going on with the people from the characters from the other books. Then my newest release started out as a takeoff kind of side story for a supplemental character that was in my 2nd book, and it actually turned into another series. Not so much BDSM related, but just a neurotic series. So we're looking into that.
And do you write, are your books more dominant women, submissive men, or dominant men, submissive women?
Currently, the series is more dominant men, submissive women. Okay. However, it's changing up in the next 2 books.
So you're going to write one for me, right, with the dominant women in there? And okay.
She's actually going to be, that's the 4th book that I just added into the series. We meet her briefly in book 2. Her name is Mistress Sarah. So we're going to have her as the dominatrix, not dominatrix, the dom, sorry. And she's going to have a nice male submissive with his own whole backstory, which I'm still kind of figuring out. But the 3rd book, which I'm actually currently working on, is my biggest challenge right now. It's actually revolving around a poly relationship. So we're seeing a dominant with 2 submissives. One's actually a male submissive and one's a female submissive.
Awesome.
And the submissives are actually not, the male submissive is not going to be submissive to the female. Like you'll see a few scenes with them by themselves. So
they'll be co-topping her. And
yeah, exactly. And then he'll be topping both of them at certain scenes and stuff. It's very interesting to write right now, and it's challenging, but it's fun. I'm enjoying that book really much. So I can't even talk. I'm sorry. It's like I've just got off of a 12-hour shift at work, and I'm like, wow.
Yeah, it gets crazy after a while.
Yeah.
I did the 3 o'clock thing this morning because I do consultations over the phone as well, because a lot of my patients and my clients are outside of New York City, and so you know, when you're talking about overseas, they're 5 hours ahead. So I'm working on their schedule as well. So I'm up at 3 o'clock in the morning, going, okay, I'm awake. Go ahead and talk to me now. And so so it gets a little crazy. And hold on one second. So, and people decided to call me while I'm on here with you guys. So, but yeah, I can totally sympathize with the hours and the craziness of those.
Yeah.
So, here's the question that a lot of people have asked me to ask you, and a lot of the authors that we work with. So, where do you get your information from? Are you living the lifestyle? Are you researching it? Are you going to events like BDSM Writers Con, which is an awesome event to go to, by the way? Where do you get your inspiration from?
It actually started out as research, and then I think as many submissive women, and especially the ones I've talked to, and you kind of get interested in, and then you start researching more, and you're like, wow, that's me. That's kind of what I like. That's kind of where I am. Wow, I didn't think about that. And I kind of stuck into the lifestyle through research, and really said, wow, I really like this. I really enjoy it. This is who I am. And it kind of opened a whole new side of me that I'm still, working my husband into all the time. We're slowly getting him into there, but I do consider myself a submissive and enjoy specific activities, but we're working on getting my husband fully on board.
Yeah, and I always think it's funny because most people, they have this belief that submissives are not very powerful, and they're just, doormats, or they'll do whatever. And it's like, no, you really need to see how powerful these submissives are and how they lead their masters and their mistresses, and they kind of lead the way sometimes, because it's like, this is what you want, and then you lead your partner towards it and help them embrace it as well, whether it's a woman or a man.
Yeah, I found myself, I don't want to say defending, but they're getting very defensive when people are like, well, they don't fully understand, and then I take it upon myself to completely educate people, and I'm like, no, that's not what it is, and you have to understand the dynamic, and we try in my novels to portray the emotional connection and that dynamic that's there, the power exchange, the trust, the freedom that submissive feels, and what's going on in their minds. So that's kind of where I focus my, you know, through the BDSM writing on, not just the BDSM itself.
Right, and that's one of the reasons why I thought it was so important to do the BDSM Writers Con, because of the fact that, you know, as we teach the authors to understand and to portray it in a respectful, you know, appropriate way, instead of what it's been, which is so many misconceptions, then the stupidity and the misconceptions and the misunderstanding of the general public will stop or will lessen to a degree where they'll understand that, you know, no, women aren't trying to be subjugated just because they're submissive, and no, you know, men aren't being misogynistic because they're being sadist, and no, a woman doesn't try to emasculate her man just because she's a dominant woman. Mm-hmm. And trying to make sure that we educate. And so I love when I hear somebody say, no, I had to stop someone, you know, and explain to them what the reality was, because I tend to do that a lot in my work, and try to normalize a bit more about the lifestyle and go, you know, we're not all crazy. We think that we might be sometimes, or we're told that we are, because it's not the norm. It's not that it's not normal, because we've all started with some kind of power exchange since the day we were born, you know, from the fact that, you know, you're in a power exchange with your parents, you're in a power exchange with your boss, you're in a power exchange with your next door neighbor on where the hell you park your car sometimes, you know. So we live power exchange lives, and we're always in some type of a power dynamic with someone. Even when we were, you know, even when we were little, like kindergarten, we had the power dynamics going, you know, the boy who's pulling the little girl's hair so he could get attention, so, you know, she could like him, and, you know, and the same thing with the little girl, you know, turning around and either pushing the boy or making fun of him or whatever it was. And so there's always that power dynamic going on. And how we relate to it, how we feel comfortable and find our sense is the important piece. And letting people understand that is so important, so that they start realizing that it's not about, you know, beating or abusing your partner. It's about sharing something that's sacred to you, or that's spiritual, or that's, you know, that's a way of loving. Because I think in BDSM, it's how we love the person that we're with, how we're affectionate to them, how we, you know, how we interact with them. That's so important. And having people understand that is paramount to getting them to write about us, or getting them to you know, to be respectful. And I went to an event in September where this man was, and it was a professional event, and one of the men was was going, so do you let people like whip you and stuff like that, you know, because he knew I was a therapist, and I said, no, I tend to hold the whip. And so he goes, oh, well, I'll just call you my mistress wherever we are. And I'm going, no, you don't get to call me that, you know, it's not a term that I use personally. But even if I did, you would have to, you know, be something to me to be able to use that terminology with me. And, you know, it's kind of like, you know, it's a form of respect. And if you're not using it appropriately, then why are you using it at all? And so, you know, even in the terminology, it's getting them to understand how to be respectful. And I find that a lot of vanilla folks just need a little push in the right direction to know that, to be respectful in that way.
I agree.
Okay, so another question that they wanted for me to ask you was, do you have any favorite toys or any favorite punishments, and if so, why?
Oh, the whys, the whys.
The whys are always important. They're cricket, but they're important.
I like, my favorite toy is the flogger.
Do you like the hard floggers or the softer floggers?
I like the softer floggers. I like just to kind of lose, it's weird, I mean, you know, lose myself in the rhythm of it and just kind of, I don't know, it's hard to explain for, you know, over this, but, and my punishments have starting to become spankings now more frequently because I've been so stressed I've been giving attitude a lot, so we've been coming upstairs to our room quite frequently lately, and now I'm enjoying it more, so I think I'm acting up more. Becoming more of a very much of a brat than anything else.
So I always tell my partners, like, you don't have to misbehave to get what you want. Just say that's what you want. You know, can you spank me now before you leave in the morning? You know, it's like, okay. Just ask for it. I am more than happy to do it.
Getting him out of bed in the morning to do it. No.
Right. Yeah. So to schedule that, you know, schedule that time in there. I think that's always a fun thing.
Yeah. We're working on it. He's very he's trying to get him into his dominant phase. You know, he likes to kind of be more submissive in the bedroom than dominant, and I want to be the submissive, but I tend to take the switch part too. So, but like I said, I'm more submissive than dominant, so it's kind of like, no, you've got to do it for me.
And that's where you turn around and bring in a third person, you know, one that can dominate both of you and instruct, you know, and so I find that especially for all, but I tend to, and it's funny because I tend to work more with dominant men and teaching them how to be dominant and teaching them how to not only play with the equipment, but also how to be able to overcome some of the social norms that we've learned in order to be able to express themselves and be dominant in an appropriate way, or be able to know that it's okay that when you're spanking your partner or when you're flogging your partner or when your partner cries, it's okay to be happy. And it's okay to do these things because you're not doing it from an abusive perspective. And I guess that's what I always try to make the impact on people is to talk about the fact that, you know, the difference between dominance and submission and domestic violence is your intent. If your intent is to share, to explore, to experiment, to be adventurous, you know, to have fun and be playful with your partner, that's BDSM. If your intent is to hurt, maim, and injure your partner, that's domestic violence.
Correct.
And so it's the intent behind your actions. It's so important.
Yeah, and I think that's a big, you know, when certain people in, like, what we call, you know, the vanilla world, like, you're talking about, they're like, how you're, you know, and I've heard it from even people I work with, they're like, but that's like abuse. I'm like, it's not abuse. Like, and then I go into my whole 35-minute spiel about the power exchange and the trust and the consensuality of everything. And I'm like, you have to understand it if you were in it, you know, and, but it's a very fine line between, you know, that, and people actually understanding that.
Right, and I always tell people, and I always get very antsy when people use what I call inappropriate terminology, because they'll say, oh, I just want to beat the shit out of that person. And it's like, no, that's not what you say, and that's not what you want to do. Because in our head, beating the shit out of somebody or beating them, you know, it's a negative thing. And so understanding that, no, you're not beating the crap out of them, you are turning around and you're sharing. You know, you're going to enjoy flogging them, or you're going to enjoy, you know, spanking them or using a belt or whatever it is that you're doing, even if you stay on the edge. But it's not, again, the intent is not to injure, and it's not to beat, and it's not to be, you know, to be mean and inappropriate. It's to share. That's like, I always call it, when I came back from my trip across country, my car ended up getting towed in New York City. And so I call it, they kidnapped my car. And so one of the guys that I was with, and he was new to the lifestyle, he goes, oh, well, why don't you just go back in the club and, and grab a submissive and beat them? And I'm like, well, I'm really upset right now, and that's the wrong energy to bring into my play. And so it's not something that I would ever do. And so understanding that, for people to also understand this isn't for you. It's not about you getting upset and then going in and beating somebody up because you're upset or angry or whatever. It's, that's not the intent that you have behind it. And if it is, then, you're being abusive towards someone else, which is inappropriate. And one of the things that I tell people, too, is that I find, and people will ask me, do you find that women, submissive women, get into more trouble or they get hurt more or, people take advantage of them? And when I stop and think about it, it's no, people don't take advantage of the submissive women, they take advantage of the submissive man. Because a submissive man figures that, he's 6 foot or he's huskier or he's got more weight on the woman. And so it's okay for him to, to submit and give all. But my thing is, it doesn't matter how big you are, how strong you are, or how much you outweigh the woman or the man that you're with when you're a male submissive, because once you're tied up, the power differential there just totally changed. And so for submissive men, I find that they get into much more trouble when they don't screen their partners or potential play partners properly. And so they do get hurt, or they do get, it does get taken to a higher degree than what they expected. And then, as with any man that's been abused, he's unlikely to say so. And he's unlikely to bring it to the authorities, where a woman would readily do so and be accepted. But with a man, it's harder for him to say, so-and-so abused me or so-and-so was inappropriate with me. And so I find that submissive men get into more problems than women do. And I don't know if you've seen that in your aspect, or if anyone that's listening wanted to comment about that. But that is one of the things that I see, and one of the things that when I do workshops with submissive men, I always talk to them about, you need your safety call. You need to be able to talk to others, to be able to, to screen the people that you're playing with. Because once you're tied up, you're screwed, and sometimes not in a good way. Okay. So, what's your latest project? And I know we talked a little bit, but tell us about your latest project and what else is going on for you there.
Like I said, I'm just writing the third, right now, currently writing the third book of the Devoured Club series. And like I said, it's a poly relationship with the two submissives and the dominant, with plot. I always think a good book needs some kind of a plot. Like there's a plot, there's a story, there's a whole thing for it. It's not just about sex. But it's the relationship, and it's the the exploration of a poly relationship and how everybody tries to fit that in, and it's really fun to write, like I said before, and I'm very excited about it, and I hope it comes out the way it's in my brain. And then shortly after that, I'm actually working on a short story for another anthology that I'm in. We just published a free anthology with 8 other writers. It's more of a flash fiction. So all stories are about 1,000 words, and it was Christmas themed, so we titled it Sexy Holiday Bites. And did really well. It put us on the Amazon bestseller list for free Kindle. It's still free if anybody wants to go get it.
Awesome. Yeah, give the information on how to go get it. Is it just...
Yeah, just if you guys go into Amazon, it's on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Smashwords. It's called Sexy Holiday Bites. If you type in my name on Amazon, there's a link to it. And like I said, it's free. But be aware, it is flash fiction, which is under 1,000 words. Actually, my story
is just enough for a bite. Is that it?
Yes, yes, exactly.
It leaves you wanting more, and then it's like, ah.
Yep. And there's some really talented writers. We've got most all erotic writers. We have Ashen White, who's actually my editor. She's a erotic horror writer. We have Carrie Ann Ward. We have L.B. Shaw. Jenna Fox, which is new to the BDSM erotic genre. So some very great, talented authors. So I'm very proud of that. And then, you know, then moving on with the other series and then working in collaboration with some other people and hopefully going to make 2014 a really good year.
Yes, 2014 is going to be an awesome year. My project for 2014 is to do the 365 days of love and sex tips and getting over 1,000 people in the next 3 months to sign up and be a part of that and being able to claim their sensual and sexual birthright and their divinity and being able to learn all about sex and what it's about. And that's part of why these chats are starting up this year. Again, because of the fact that I don't think we get enough of it on a positive perspective. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that say, oh, yeah, I'm a sex therapist and I'm a sex expert and here's the information. And all they want to talk about is, you know, shock jock type information. They don't want to talk about what's real and what, you know, how relationships can actually work, which I think is so important because we don't have that out there. And we don't have it out there on a positive perspective about sex. Right. So that's my project. So everyone gets to learn about that, and we'll talk a little bit more about it. But it's 365 days of sex tips, and they go straight into your inbox in the morning, and you have them at midnight. They typically are going out at midnight, and you know each email builds on the one before to get you comfortable with your sexuality, to get you comfortable with your body, to get you comfortable with your relationship, to have fun and fun ideas and playful things and everything in between. And so I invite you to go and check it out. It's on my website, drcharley.com, 365 sex tips. And if you go to the website, it'll just say 365 sex tips. And one of the specials that I'm offering is if you buy one, you get one free. So it's only $4.99. It's the price of a book. It's the price of an ebook. And you buy one, you get one free. You buy 3, you get 3 free. You buy 20, you get 100 free. So, you know, my whole thing is to get it out there and get it into the public. And it's awesome, I think. So, okay, so I wanted to ask some questions, and some of the questions that have been coming in have been wonderful. And if any of you that are in the chat room have any questions, feel free to pose them. And I don't know, Mr. Foss, are you raising your hand or are you putting it down?
I was raising it, but now you answered. I mean, I'll start.
Sure, go for it.
When they come to my mind now, I'll start speaking.
Okay, so
I just want to interrupt your review. I didn't know what the proper etiquette would be, so I was just waiting.
Well, I'm very easygoing, and I will flow through things, but, you know, feel free to ask a question anytime. You know, raise your hand and ask the question. And so if you wanted to ask one now, go for it.
Okay, I'm good right now. I actually did the research online, so I answered my own questions.
So you answered your own question. You didn't even let me answer it. Okay, fine. Spankings all around.
Here's what it was. In the very beginning, somebody had mentioned dominatrix, and I believe a dame, and it was almost said like they may be different. And in my mind, I'm not that familiar, but I thought they were the exact same thing. They are different?
Yes, they are.
What's the difference?
A dominatrix is someone who is hired to provide a role for you, to be in the role of a dominant woman and to take control of the man. But at the end of the day, at the end of the session, and it's a session, whether it's an hour long or more, at the end of the session, the person is through, and there's no relationship whatsoever. It's just you bought her time, and that's it. Whereas a dame, which is a female dominant, and how they're sometimes called, a dame is someone who is a dominant woman, and that's who she is. It's not a role that she's playing. It's her personality. And so that's a person that's in a relationship with someone else and is their dominant. And that's the major difference.
So I'm my wife's dominant, yet she named her car Dame. So is there some kind of conflict going on in her mind?
You have to ask her, but, you know, is the car being the dominant one for both of you? You know, because sometimes the car controls your life, so maybe she's named it appropriately. Because I know with my car troubles, I mean, it's dominated my life. So, but yeah, the one thing I know that for writing and for stories, you know, a lot of the times they'll say, well, the dominatrix, and she's a dominatrix, but a dominatrix is actually someone that's hired to provide this service. And so not a lot of submissive women are actually dominatrix because they work in the lifestyle, but their true calling is to be a submissive, and so they're submissive to their partner, but they'll dominate you know, somebody that's hired them to do it. And so I like to make the distinction of, you know, we're not the same. Like, I'm a dominant woman, I'm not a dominatrix. You know, you can't pay me to do this. It's just not going to happen. So that's the big difference. And then a dominant man is typically called a dom.
Right, with no designation for if I'm getting paid or not.
No, right, exactly. And I have known quite a few, I wouldn't say quite a few, I'd say a handful of dominant men who have been, you know, on the other side of being paid to be the dominant for a woman. So in a sense, they're a male dominatrix. And so that's the difference, you know, it's getting paid for it. So, which is one of the things that I kind of hate about some of the books that are out there on BS, because all the dominant women are dominatrix. I mean, I think about 80 to 90% of them are dominatrix. And I'm like, wait a minute, you know, we could be other than a dominatrix working at a club. We can be doctors and lawyers and a clerk at the store and a nurse, or, you know, your next door neighbor.
I would think in real life, 90-some% of you are, right?
Probably. Yeah, we're everything but a dominatrix.
Right.
Yeah. What was that?
She's talking to you.
Oh, it seems like there's a lot of submissives that are nurses. I have a lot of them write to me. I have a lot of submissives that are nurses.
Okay, wait a minnet with that one. I'm going through nursing school, so you don't understand the stress you are sitting at work. I get home from an 8-hour shift on Saturdays, and I'm about ready to pop my head off. I'm like, I need something. Yeah. But I think it's the control you have to take in that job.
Yeah, there's some kind of connection there. You know, you make decisions, and then I think when they get home, they don't want to make decisions. They want them to be made for them.
Yeah, and it's also the part of submissives are about care, about taking care of someone else. They're about giving service. They're about helping ease life. And so I do see, you know, you are right. There are a lot of nurses, male and female, that are submissive. There's also a lot of doctors, believe it or not, that are submissive because that's what calls to them. They're being of service to someone else. And when they get home, they do want to put everything to the side and be able to just relax and not have to be in charge and not have to make decisions and not have to, you know, have any kind of stress around things that they have to do. I mean, sometimes being submissive is a wonderful way of just letting go of the stresses of life and being able to say, you know, here I am, this is it, I don't have to worry about anything else. And that's a beautiful thing. It's also a beautiful thing when a submissive gives you their submission and are able to say that, to trust you enough to say, you know, just stop the world for me for a while. And I think, you know, one of the jokes that I have whenever I do workshops is I tell people, you know, dominance and submission for me stops the voices. It quiets them down. You know, it makes peaceful living so that you can get your life back in order because it makes sense. And so it's one of those pieces of, you know, it makes sense for those individuals that accept this lifestyle because that's what connects. That's what brings the connection and the peace and the quieting the voices. So, okay. Any other questions so far, or comments on that, or
negative?
Okay. So I wanted to answer one of the questions that we had. So and here's 2-page that you can answer this question. And one of the questions was about oral sex. And it says, I'm frequently the giver and very seldom the receiver, maybe a couple of times a year. My husband doesn't seem to be a fan of cunnilingus. Me, on the other hand, am a big fan. Our sex life is very good other than that. How do I approach this subject with him? I don't want to make him feel bad. I just need to tell him that this is what I want. And she says, thank you in advance, lovely lady. And so I find that sometimes individuals feel uncomfortable having oral sex, whether it's from a male perspective or a female perspective. And sometimes it tends to be what we've learned, or the fact that you don't understand how to do it, or the fact that it's one of those things where can you wrap your head around what you are doing? So is it comfortable for you to be able to give cunnilingus or to do fellatio and give oral sex to your partner and find a way of making that acceptable, making it pleasurable, making it fun, making it erotic? And that's the big piece of it. Once you start finding the eroticism of oral sex or any kind of sex, that's what's going to turn it around for you and make it more enjoyable. Also, it's important to talk to your partner about what do they need to make it acceptable for them to be able to do this. For instance, I had one individual who said he enjoyed doing oral sex with his partner. However, his requirement was the fact that she needed to shower before time. She needed to put on, you know, special underwear for him so that it would be more pleasurable. He didn't enjoy doing it, you know, in the heat of the moment after work or something like that because he felt, you know, the body sweats and so on, and it wasn't pleasurable for him. And so, you know, so that's one of the ways to make it more pleasurable for yourself or your partner. Same thing with a man when you're doing fellatio on a man, you know, I mean, men sweat as well, and the crotch area does get, you know, get this musky smell to it. And so being able to make it more pleasurable, or even, you know, sometimes it's shaving for your partner, to have it to where the skin is smooth, whether male or female, and having the genital area free of hair, so that it is more pleasurable, so that it is more enticing, or decorated a little bit. You know, there's jewelry for men and women out there that you can use. Where I always think, you know, jewelry is fun, whether it's a man or a woman. You know, it's just enticing.
Yeah, I find, you know, a biggest complaint is, you know, quote unquote cleanliness. I mean, I don't see my husband until the end of the day, so you think about it. So, you know, if I'm trying to get him to do that, I'll jump into a quick shower, dolly myself up a little bit. It makes me feel, you know, sexier and more, I guess, just more prone to I'm at a loss of words here. But I think I think telling your partner and trying to explain to your partner what you're wanting on an honesty and an open basis, like, you know, I know I give you a lot of sex and I know you enjoy it, and I want you to tell me what I could do to make yours better, but, you know, can we try to, you know, see what's going on here, and I would like this. And I think it's all honesty, you know, and working on really telling your partner and, you know, your dominant, whatever, you know, your words you use, husband, anything like that, you know, what it is you want. It's an exploration of your bodies together, and if you're missing out on something, you need to be open enough to communicate.
Exactly. And it is one of those things where needing to understand that even though we're all speaking English or whatever language we're speaking, we're not all speaking the same type of English. And what I mean by that is that words have different meanings for different people. We make different connections on words. And so what's comfortable for you may not be comfortable for your partner. And so making sure that you each understand what you're saying. So for instance, the easiest example I can do with this is like if somebody says, honey, I want you to hold me after we have sex. And so your partner says, hey, I could do that. I can hold you, no problem. And so then the partner that wants it to be held gets upset because 5 minutes after they have sex, their partner is getting up and going and showering or going to get some food or whatever. And they're going, well, you said you would hold me after sex. And the partner's going, but I did hold you. You know, you didn't say you wanted me. Yeah, you didn't say you wanted it all night long, and you didn't say you wanted it for, you know, for 30 minutes or whatever. And so being specific on what it is that you need, on how it is that you need it. And so for a lovely lady, if you want your husband to perform oral sex more, then tell him that's what you want. Ask him, what does he need to make that more acceptable for him? Is it something that you need to wear? Is it something that you need to do? Is it shaving? Is it not shaving? Is it, you know, using a little perfume powder? You know, playing with toys before time? You know, so being able to communicate those desires. And I guess what I found in, you know, I've been doing sex therapy for almost 20 years now. What I find is that we can be very intimate with our partners, but we're so afraid and uncomfortable about talking about certain things, especially when it involves sex. You know, whether it's something as simple as oral sex or anal sex or just how you want to be touched. We tend to think that our partner should know what we want, what we like, and yet we're not telling them what we need. We're not telling them and explaining to them in detail sometimes what it is that we need from them to be able to enjoy ourselves more. And once we start doing that, once we start opening up and saying, you know, these are the ways that I need it. This is what I would like. This is what's going to make it more pleasurable. Once we start doing that with our partner, our sex life goes up tremendously. And and realizing that it's okay to be nervous, and it's okay to blush, and it's okay to, to have to write things down and just let them read it because you're too shy to say it. It's okay. What you'll find is that the more that you ask for things, the more that you discuss it, the more that you incorporate such an open communication with you and your partner, the more pleasure you're going to derive from it. And the easier it's going to be down the road as you talk about things in the future, and not only about sex, but anything under the sun. And when I always joke that the one beautiful thing that I love about the DS community is that the people in it tend to be very open about sex and very open to discussing it. And the one thing that I don't like all that much about the DS community is the fact that we're so open about sex and we're willing to discuss it. Because sometimes the information that you get from someone is a little too revealing.
Too much.
It's like TMI, but the beauty of it is that, as you continue to do this, you become more and more comfortable with asking for what you want, with sharing what you need, with finding different ways. Sometimes, too, it's forcing your partner, and if you have a DS relationship, it is forcing your partner to do the fellatio, telling them this is part of the requirements of their duties to you. If you're the dominant one, or, if you're the submissive one, you can ask, master, mistress, this is what I need. This is what's going to make, your submissive very happy. And would you please do this? And if not, I'm going to be a brat. And so, again, being able to communicate is the important piece, and so on. Okay, Ed, did you want to add anything to that?
Nope, I think we covered it.
Okay. Okay, so here's another one. Let's see. Good morning, Dr. Charley. I just finished reading BDSM, The Naked Truth, and greatly enjoyed it. Yay, thank you, because that's one of my books. I have been dabbling into and investigating the DS lifestyle recently. Your book is very insightful, and I felt it is very well written and a tremendous revelation to me. I actually felt comforted by it since it alleviated some of my guilt and my feelings of abnormality. I tend towards the submissive and have observed it in myself most of my life, and just now am realizing the potential for a more fulfilling lifestyle. Now, if I could only get my wife to read it. Which, thank you, Steve, for saying such wonderful things about my book. I'm really pleased that I was able to help. I found that a lot of people are, they have written me and said, finally, they feel normal. And it's not so bad. And I guess for me, one of the reasons why I did the book was the fact that, I've been in that boat as a teenager, trying to reconcile the fact that, when I see somebody in bondage, I thought it was really hot, and it really resonated with me. And yet nobody else around me thought the same way, And so feeling like you're the oddball, feeling like you're abnormal, because society says you're not supposed to like this, especially as a dominant woman. Dominant women or women are supposed to be the submissive ones, and yet here I was going against, my culture and against societal norms to say, that's not working for me. So there is a lot of guilt, there is a lot of shame, there's a lot of fear as well when you start getting into the lifestyle and accepting these parts of yourself, that it is one of the pieces, and it is a lot of the work that I do with clients, is talking about the normalcy of it, because it is something that we're born with, and it is a way of connecting. John Money talks about love maps, and one of his books is called Love Maps. And he talks about the fact that we make these maps in our love life even before we realize what they are. As young as 3, 4, and 5 years old, we're already establishing the connections that we're going to be making with other people not only based on our upbringing and what we experience, but the fact that that's what makes sense to us. You know, a lot of people say, oh, well, the only reason that you're into, you know, BDSM is because you've been abused in the past and you must have had some trauma, and that's why you either want to beat someone or you want to, you know, someone to beat you. And it's, you know, yes, there are, you know, a number of people that have had trauma in the past and they're working through it and they do come into the lifestyle and that's what they're used to. But the majority of us, it's not about, you know, having been traumatized in your life. It's the fact that that's who you are. You know, you see a bossy child or, you know, and how they interact with their friends, or do they take control? Do they, you know, step forward and they're the leaders? That's natural for them. And so that's part of being, you know, submissive or dominant. And understanding that it's just a natural way of being. It's just, it might not be what society accepts. There are some wonderful books on the market. One of the ones that I recommend the most is When Someone You Love Is Kinky. And that's a wonderful book, and right now I'm spacing on who wrote it. But it's a wonderful book about being able to open up to your partner about the fact that you're kinky, being able to start introducing them. You know, kind of like Paige, you said you were introducing your husband to being more dominant with you, to being able to open up a little bit more and be more assertive in his own way, to be able to fit more of what you're looking for. And that is part of it. It is, you know, sometimes, you know, it's the submissive that leads the dominant down the path, and sometimes it's the other way around. But
right.
it is talking about it.
And he's still battling with his own recognition that it's normal. You know, there's times when he'll say something, or, you know, he'll express something that he wants me to do, and he's like, but is this normal? Like, you know, and I think anything's normal because it's between us. It's like our communication, and as long as we're okay with it, and, you know, it's our sexuality, it's our life. It's not society's life to tell, you know, rule to tell me what's normal.
Right.
You know, I come from an English background, literature background, so a lot of my research and stuff was done with submissiveness, you know, during the 19th and 20th centuries. So I'm a big advocate on, you know, society telling us what's supposed to be normal and what's not, and, you know, how I can break that. So when, you know, like you said, it's people feel more comfortable when they realize who they truly are, and just to accept that and to know that your normal is your normal. It's not what society states is normal.
Right. And
you know, he's still, like I said, he's still trying to come to terms with that on a daily basis. Like, he'll have moments where it's, well, is this normal? Why should I be thinking this? And he comes from a very Catholic religious background, and I'm like, it's normal for you because that's what you want and that's how you feel, and it's our relationship, then it's normal for us.
Right.
And I think
I think it's really important to understand that the minute that we say normal, we're putting judgment on something. Mm-hmm. You know, even if it's an unconscious thing, it's putting a judgment on an activity, on what's going on. When you say norm, you know, norm just means the average. You know, do the average people do this? Is the average number, you know, 5? Is it, you know, what is it? And so norm is actually, excuse me, the non-judgmental form of saying, you know, 5 out of 10 people do that. So would that then be normal? You know, or 6 out of 10 people do it. So the more people that do it, then we go into the judgment, oh, well, then if everyone's doing it, then it would be normal. You know, but, you know, that's not true. And so understanding that normal has nothing to do with whether or not it's right or wrong. It's just that more people than not are doing it.
Right.
And so, as you said, what's right for you is right for you. If this is comfortable for you, then that is the norm, as long as it's consensual. And I tend to tell people, you know, when we talk about sadists and we talk about people that are, you know, that are inflicting pain on others, you know, a sadist, I always like to make the distinction between, you know, your typical sadist and your healthy sadist and your abnormal criminal sadist. And again, the difference is the intent. Your normal sadist is wanting to share an experience and intensity, whether it's pain or emotional or whatever. They're sharing a special part of themselves in a consensual way. The criminal sadist is sharing, and yes, they, you know, they want this because that's what they want, but they have no empathy. They have no care for the person that they're inflicting this sadism with. And so that's where it becomes abnormal. That's where it becomes inappropriate because they're not being consensual and they're crossing the line into abuse. And so, you know, taking it back to how do you get your partner to accept this, to feel comfortable with it, it does take work. It does take education. It does take, you know, maybe going to, you know, a kink-friendly therapist who can help you with some of the guilt feelings that you're having around it. And one of the parts that, you know, one of the pieces that I hate the most is that I always have people that will come to me and talk, and they'll come to me after they've gone to a different therapist or something, and they'll say, you know, well, my prior therapist said that there was something wrong with me, or, excuse me, or, you know, they were trying to fix me because, you know, there's something wrong with me wanting these things. And that's where I get really upset because as a therapist, it's not our place to judge. It's not our place to impose our beliefs on our patients. It's our place to teach and educate and help them get through their discomfort on whatever's going on with their lives, not to impose our own values and our own requirements for someone. And so I always tell people, if you're having a lot of anxiety or guilt feelings or shame, then, you know, then do talk to someone. Talk to people in the lifestyle. Find yourself a mentor that can help you through it. Go to a kink-friendly therapist like myself who can then help you be more comfortable with what you're experiencing, because society has told you for so many years and so many decades that there's something wrong with you.
Exactly.
And there isn't. I mean, you know, and the way that society portrays us it's such a negative light. I mean, the only movies that I've ever seen on DS have always had some kind of, you know, we're either killers or we're, you know, we're being inappropriate and we need to be in a mental institution, or, you know, we're taking advantage of our partners. It's always a very negative portrayal, no matter what we do. And so one of the reasons why, you know, BDSM Writers Con is so important and why it's so important to me as well is the fact that it's my way of saying, here's the facts, here's the truth. Come and learn, you know, whether you're a writer or a reader, come and learn what the truth is so that you can understand what's really happening.
Exactly. I think, you know, getting into the lifestyle, I've actually turned into a more confident person. And part of that is just accepting who I am and what I want. And I think in turn, it gives you the confidence to open really, you know, conversations with your partners, you know, and explore certain things together.
Yeah.
And I hate labels. I've always hated labels my entire life. So I'm not somebody that goes and labels people or things. So I never, you know, judge people to that extent. And if it's something, you know, my motto being with anything is if you're happy with yourself and what you're doing, then who am I to judge what you're doing?
Right.
You know, we all have something that makes us happy. And I think just, you know, giving yourself that time to accept who you are, and then you can slowly talk to your partner about it and bring it up here and there. And, you know,
Exactly.
I've been asked on set life by, you know, random people in our area, you know, like, oh, I'm new to it. How do I talk to my, you know, my partner? I don't know how to get her into it. And, you know, it's just, like I said, confidence and just being open and honest about who you are, and, you know, that education, research.
Education and research and talking about it. And I think it's important to be upfront with your partner as well. I find so many people that will get into a relationship and it's not quite the right relationship for them, but they're happy because at least they have somebody. And so then, you know, a lot of infidelity, when I deal with infidelity with some of my clients, it's because of the fact that they weren't comfortable saying what they needed with their partner. So they try to separate what's going on with them and finding, you know, here's my wife and this is what I'm going to do with my wife, but then I'm going to have my mistress over here in the corner and I can do all these other things with her. I can be myself. I can be submissive, or I can be, you know, dominate, or I can spank, or I can play in other ways. And what I tell people is, you know, your partner can be all those things for you that you need. And it's more the fear of rejection that keeps you from talking to them about it, from being able to say, you know, these are the things that I need, or here's what I want to try with you. And so if you're not willing to talk to your partner, then who would you be willing to talk to? You know, and if you're not sharing these parts and these aspects of your life with your partner, then you're robbing your partner of the lover that you could be for them.
Mm-hmm.
So it is about talking. It is about also, you know, the big piece of it is educating them, because a lot of people have the misconception of what DS is all about. And they think, oh, well, you know, I don't want you to whip me. I don't want you to flog me. But, you know, I say half, if not 60% of the lifestyle has nothing to do with any kind of sexual connections or any kind of choice. You know, it's all about service. And it's all about being of service to the other person. And so understanding what it is, if they become educated in what it is and what it isn't, then the anxiety goes down, the awareness goes up, and they might be more willing to accept what they are and you know, and how they feel. And one of the things I tell people going new into the life is, you know, they're trying to label themselves quickly. It's like, oh, well, I must be a submissive, I must be a dominant, I must be, you know, a turnip. You know, it's go out and explore. See what you like, see what you don't like. You know, try to allow yourself more than once. Because my big motto is do everything at least 3 times. Because the first time you do something, you're sitting there going, holy crap, what the hell was this? You know, it's too weird, I don't want to do it. But then if you try it once or twice more, you might see that maybe if you tweaked it a little bit, it felt better. Or maybe if you know, if you did it in a different position, it was wonderful. And so being able to explore a little more. Also the fact that when you go into the lifestyle, some of the things that you see might feel uncomfortable for you. And so, you know, turning around and it's like you're watching a television show. If you don't like it, change the channel. Same thing with, you know, with DS. If you don't like it, don't do it. You know, change the channel, look elsewhere, do something else. Mr. Fox, do you have your hand up? Did you want to say something?
Okay. He muted himself here.
Okay. So it is all about learning and exploring, you know, trying, reading, and I think, you know, my book, BDSM, The Naked Truth, has a lot of information in there. It also has, I put in there a BDSM checklist, which also gives you ideas on understanding some of the different things that there are. Some, you know, letting yourself know that if you try this, how did you feel? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Can you do without it? Would it be more awesome and more erotic if your partner forced you to do it? You know, going back to the idea of oral sex, you know, would your partner feel more comfortable if they were forced to do it? Not in a bad way, but in the way of, you know, telling your partner, well, you're going to do this for me because that's what I want. And so sharing that bit of dominance with your partner. So that's all part of it. Okay, so I'm going to switch to the next question here. And one of the questions was, I am a female and I'm wondering, how do I prepare for anal sex? And so with anal sex, and I put the video here, if you go to my website, BDSMWritersCon.com, there's a video there on anal sex and avoiding pain. Most of the time people, you know, again, it goes back to the connections that we make. And so we've been taught, you know, your anus is an out hole, you know, you shouldn't put anything in it. But yet it is a wonderful experience to be able to have anal sex with your partner and the emotional connections that come with that. As far as preparing, if you're preparing mentally, it's getting your mind around it. Also the fact that anal sex is also a form of submission. And so, you know, a lot of men will also, a lot of submissive men, even dominant men, may enjoy anal sex because of the feeling that it gives them. Not to mention that for a man, their G-spot, as a man also has a G-spot, and the man's G-spot is the prostate. And so being able to stimulate that gives them an amazing orgasm. And so why wouldn't they want to do that? So preparing for it, I would say, you know, the most important thing to prepare for anal sex is to make sure that you have plenty of lube. You want to make sure that you're very well lubricated, because the anus doesn't have lubrication. It doesn't make its own lubrication. And so you want that. Also, the easiest way to have anal sex and the easiest way to clean up from it is to use condoms. Because of the fact that it's easier for cleanup, and if you put silicone lube, not oil-based, it'll last longer. So when you're using lube for anal sex, you want the silicone base. Water-based tends to evaporate too quickly. Another place too is that you can play with toys. You can use anal dilators to be able to open you up a little bit more. And they have anal dilators, which are basically, they're like a dildo on different sizes, you know, going from small, about the size of a thumb, to being much thicker, and being able to get comfortable with the size that you're using, being able to get comfortable with the different positions that you're going to try it in. And so, you know, I always recommend that when someone's having anal sex for the first time, they should be the ones in control of the depth and the movement and so on, because you want to make it comfortable so that you'll do it over and over again. Also, the fact that anal sex is, or excuse me, the anal canal is not straight. It's actually curved. It's like an S-curve. It has two curves in it. And so if someone is just, you know, doing hard thrusting, whether it's a man or a woman with a dildo doing anal penetration, you know, understanding that you have to go slow right at the beginning to get the rhythm of it, to let your partner get comfortable with the penetration, so that then you can move faster, you can move more forcefully in it. And again, it's a part of communicating with your partner and telling them what you need. And in anal sex, it's something that you need to talk about and express whether or not it's being painful, whether or not you need, you know, a certain movement, so that there is no major discomfort. And so that's the big piece on anal sex. Did you want to comment on that?
No.
It's like, no, I'll stay quiet.
No. I mean, the few times we've done it, it just definitely needs to, you know, be relaxed. You have to, you know, a lot of preparation, communication. You know, and it can be enjoyable if it's done the right way.
Right, and sometimes too, you know, another way to prepare is doing a cleansing, doing you know, I hate saying, you know, go and do a laxative and clean yourself out, because some of the laxatives have the chemicals to give you cramps, you know, and so it's very unpleasant. But you can do, you know, God, I'm spacing on it, an enema. And you can do an enema to clean yourself out, especially if, if you want to, if you're doing any kind of digital penetration, so being able to be cleanly. Also, afterwards, make sure you clean yourself out. Use an enema to be able to, to clean your body out and your orifice out. And so one of the things that I would recommend is not putting any kind of wash in it or any kind of, some people use enemas and that's a whole nother kind of play. Excuse me, but making sure that you just use water, just nice warm water is all you need. You don't need to put any kind of detergent. You don't need to put any kind of cleansers. You don't need to do any of that. And then understanding that if it's your first time doing anal sex, it's going to hurt. It's going to be a bit painful, and afterwards it might be painful as well. I would say another way of preparing for this would also be doing Kegels. And typically people recommend Kegels for women who have had children or for men who have any kind of impotency problems or erectile dysfunction. Kegels are wonderful to help it last longer and be more pleasurable. But also the Kegels help with anal sex because of the fact that if you're doing your Kegels daily, you'll get to where you can relax your muscle as well as contract it. And part of doing Kegels, and for people who don't know what Kegels are, it's an exercise you do where you tighten the PC muscle. And the PC muscle is the pubococcygeal muscle that runs from the front of your genitals, like the clitoris, going forward, going all the way down and around and coming up through your anus. And so it's the whole lining of your genital cavity underneath. And so it tightens on both ends. I mean, it's one muscle, but you'll feel the tightness on both ends if you're doing it, religiously and being very conscientious of the fact that you should do your Kegels. And what you need to do is you need to tighten for 4 seconds and release for 4 seconds. Most people forget that you need to release, because what you want to do is you want to get the muscle to remember how to relax. And so tighten for 4, release for 4, tighten for 4, release for 4. And being able to do this is going to prepare you as well for anal sex so that you can relax the muscles, because one of the things that you do, especially when you're thinking it's going to hurt, is you clam up. And you don't want to do that. Also, for people to know that you're strengthening the muscle, how you know is if you're in the bathroom and let your urine flow. And so if you can stop your urine immediately, that means you have very good PC muscles. If you can't, then that means you need to work on them. And also it helps, especially for women, it helps with the integrity of the vaginal opening and it's helping to keep everything of ours in place, your uterus and so on, and keeping all those muscles in place is very important for women. So that's a wonderful way of preparing for it. Okay, for men too, one of the questions was, why are men so interested in having anal sex? And I think I covered that. It's because of the fact that it's a wonderful way of getting your prostate stimulated. And I don't think there's been studies, and I think there should be, but it's amazing to realize that if you don't stimulate your prostate, it's easier or more likely that it'll get inflamed and can lead to cancer. And so for men, the stimulation of the prostate actually helps prevent any kind of prostate cancer. And so, whether you're having your partner do it for you or you're doing it for yourself, it's something to consider. I wanted to get another one. And here was one question that I wanted to make sure that we have like 10 minutes before we're due to end. And so I wanted to touch upon one of the questions that I thought was really important, and this was one of the questions from Colette Saucier, who we did a chat a couple of weeks back, and we didn't get to answer this one, but I wanted to make sure that we answered it this time. And it says, I am a new Dom adjusting to the lifestyle. By nature, I tend to be too much of a workaholic and a bit forgetful about normal everyday things to check my submissive following orders, such as checking emails or text messages or claiming my rights of ownership. My concern is that I give the impression sometimes that I am not committed to being a Dom. And he has another question as well, but I wanted to make sure that I address this one. And you know, it's not your submissive responsibility. And before I continue, there's noise in the background, so can whoever's having noise in the background mute their stuff. But it's really important to understand that, you know, as a dominant, you're responsible for the relationship. Yes, you both are, but as a dominant, you have more responsibility to make sure that the things get done. You know, it's kind of like, and I don't want you to get this analogy wrong, but it's kind of like a parent with a child. You don't ask your child to parent. You don't ask your child to parent themselves and remind you when they need to be reminded of something. You have to take control. And so as a dominant, it's your responsibility to turn around and make sure that your submissive follows the rules, that your submissive is checking in, that you're checking in with your submissive. Because also it's important to let your submissive know that this relationship is just as important to you as it is to them. And you're willing to make them a focus of your life. And so if you need to pencil them in, then do it. You know, I mean, I have the big joke with my partner of, you know, honey, I got you in at 3 o'clock and 3 to 4 is your time, and that's just yours. And then being able to be respectful of the fact that that's your partner's time or that's your submissive time, and you give that to them because you're showing them that they're just as important as anything else in your life, and maybe more so because you're actually making sure that you take that time out, that you make it so that they know that they're important. Also, the other piece too is, you know, you talk about claiming your rights of ownership. Well, the only person that can claim them is you. And so being able to be conscientious of the fact that sometimes you do need to forego some of the other stuff at work and delegate those things that you can delegate so that you can have the time that you want with your partner. It's also the, you know, the Dom's responsibility to check in with the submissive, because I think that really shows the fact that you are conscientious of what you're doing and how you're behaving with your submissive. If after you play with them, you call them. You know, do you call them to check in? Do you call them to see if they're okay? Do you call them to make sure that their mindset is correct? Do you call them to make sure that, you know, they're doing what you told them to? So if you gave them an assignment, you know, are you going back to follow up on that assignment and say, hey, you were supposed to have this done on Monday. It's not done. Why isn't it done? And if it's not done, why didn't you ask for an extended time and more assistance? And so you have to take responsibility for that and be able to get your message across that, you know, that being a dominant is important in your life. And if it's not, then maybe you're not a dominant. Maybe you're, you know, you're playing at being dominant, or maybe, you know, this really isn't what calls to you. And so being able to notice that as well. There's nothing wrong for you to say, you know, it takes a lot of work. And, you know, in reality, being a dominant is a hell of a lot of work, because you're not only setting up a structure, but you're having to maintain that structure. And so it is work, but if that's what really calls to you, then it becomes fun, playful work. And it becomes something that if you start getting in the habit of doing it, it'll come naturally to you. It'll be comfortable. And sometimes I see that, especially for new doms, it's more of a comfort thing. You're not used to being in control, and so you're not, you know, you're not comfortable taking control. And so being able to address that with yourself. You know, do you not make time because you aren't as comfortable or as confident in yourself as you would like to be, and so you kind of, you know, avoid it. And so if that's what's happening, then realizing that the only way you're going to gain confidence in yourself is by doing. And so being able to, you know, to talk to your partner and go, I might make mistakes and I might have to correct something, but as I go, I will correct it. And that's part of it as well about being a dominant is when you notice something that needs to be corrected, correct it. If you notice that you tried something and it didn't work out, or wow, you made a mistake, then hey, you made a mistake, big deal, move on, correct it, tweak it, do whatever needs to be done, and then, you know, move on from there. You don't have to beat yourself up because you did something wrong and you said the wrong thing. You just, you know, chalk it up to experience and then continue and then try it and do it in a different way. The other question was, do you have any suggestions as to how I can make my role as a Dom more central to my daily routines? Again, it is, you know, pencil it in. You know, if you're going to ask your submissive to do a certain activity at, say, lunchtime, you want them to check in with you, then make sure that you set that time aside to be able to check in with them, to be able to, you know, add it to your routine, write it down, pencil it in. That's the only way to make sure that it becomes second nature. The question goes on to say, I know there is some sort of protocol when DOMs and subs meet others in the lifestyle. How can I find out about the protocol etiquette or the proper etiquette? There is a lot of etiquette that needs to be learned, especially when you're new to the lifestyle. It's a lot of it is common sense, and a lot of it is just being respectful. The biggest thing is you don't touch somebody else's submissive unless they give you permission to. If in doubt of whether or not somebody is, you know, a submissive is taken, or if somebody is submissive, then ask them, you know, what's the proper, you know, how would you like me to, you know, to talk to you? How would you like me to call you? How would you, you know, if I see a scene that I like and I want to talk to the people, then realizing that it's waiting for them to be done with their scene before you approach them, letting them have their aftercare, letting them get it together. And you'll notice when people want to be, you know, when people are open to having questions and so on, because they'll be open about it, or they won't be focusing on each other. They'll be a little more open. And so that's another thing. Robert Rubel, R-U-B-E-L, has a wonderful book on protocols and rituals. And so reading about that as well. In my book, BDSM, The Naked Truth, I talk about some of the protocols that are, you know, that are important and that are basics in the lifestyle. And so being able to learn some of those. You know, the biggest protocol I can give you is being respectful, whether it's, you know, to a submissive or a dominant. Some people say, oh, well, you know, they're a submissive, you don't have to worry about it. You know, you can talk to them however you want. And, you know, that's not true. A submissive deserves just as much respect as anyone else. And so being respectful to them, talking to them, asking them. I mean, as a dominant woman, I say yes and no and thank you and please and, you know, come here and be very respectful to my submissive, because of the fact that, you know, they're being vulnerable, they're giving a part of themselves, and that should be honored. Another piece on etiquette is, you know, is being respectful and understanding that some people's etiquettes may be different than yours. Again, don't touch somebody submissive unless they give you permission. You know, I have some friends that I always interact with, And my friend just tells me, you know, that I don't need to ask permission. Like whenever I'm with her and her submissive, you know, I always ask her permission before I give him a hug. And she's like, oh, Charley, you don't have to ask. And I say, well, you know, yes, I do, because I'm honoring the fact that he's your submissive and you're in a relationship, and I shouldn't touch him unless I ask your permission. And so being able to be very respectful of that relationship is important. So again, you know, find books on protocol and see what, you know, what resonates with you, and establish your own, because part of the lifestyle is establishing your own protocols and understanding that there's different levels of protocol. Some have what's called high protocol, where the submissive is, you know, eyes down, hands behind their back. They don't talk unless spoken to, and so on. Whereas low protocol is they're allowed to be more open, to be more forthcoming. Also, you know, a part of protocol too is you may not have the person introduce their submissive, or you don't shake hands with the submissive because that's not their place, that's not their position. And they only do so if their dominant says it's okay, whether it's a man or a woman. Their dominant says that it's okay. So those are some of the pieces of being able to be submissive. We're right at our time, a little bit over, and so I wanted to, if we have any questions or comments, Paige, that you'd like to make before we end the discussion and close it up.
I just wanted to say thank you for having me. I look forward to, you know, the conference coming up, and it was really fun tonight.
Yeah, it was lots of fun, and I'm so pleased that we had everyone here. Also, the fact that the discussion is open once the recording is available, and it should be available, you know, in the next hour or so, or by tomorrow. We'll have it on the site, so you can come back and listen to it anytime you want. Also, posing other questions if you want to pose other questions. The site is going to be open for questions. You can also post them on the live chat on my website, drcharley.com, live chat, and that's, you know, Dr. Charley, all spelled out, DoctorCharley.com. Also, for those of you that are here, and those of you listening, I know, Paige, you wanted to also, you have a giveaway that you're planning to do with them. And so can you tell us a little bit about where they should go to sign up for that?
Yeah, I'm going to post a link on my blog, www.paigematthews.com. And it's going to be a link to a Rafflecopter. So you just go in and, you know, there's two things you have to do. So if you listen to this, you'll get one of them. The other one is if you're on Facebook, just like me. You know, I have to get some kind of promo here. But I'm going to open it up for about a week, and people can enter to win a signed copy of my second book, Do Me, and an ebook of Crossroads. And then I'm giving out a couple more copies of each ebook.
Awesome. Awesome. And then from me, for those of you that are here live with us, what I want to share is I want to share the 365, like I talked about before. And where is it? Right here. Being able to get a copy, a courtesy copy. So Mr. Fox and Little S and Roadrunner, get a copy of 365. And that's my treat to you for being live with us on the show today. And make sure that you send me an email so I can send you a link to get yours, and I can set you up for that. And then if you wanted to share 365 days of love and sex tips with other people, setting it up, and again, I have the 2-for-1 so that you can get a copy and they can get a copy. And then also, we do have a special now for BDSM Writers Con. For those that sign up now, if you haven't signed up and registered already for the conference, we're actually providing the last payment for free through the 15th of this month. So if you sign up from now to January 15th, we'll make your last payment of $60 because you can set up for the conference for just $50 on a payment plan and have it all paid off by the time the conference comes. And we have over 40 hours worth of workshops. We have meet and greets with the authors. We have fun events going on. And Paige, you said you were also going to have a luncheon with people so that people can go and have a special lunch with you. And you guys can go out and talk and have a lunch with them. And it's one of those, you buy your own meals, but you get to hang out with Paige for an hour or so, and she'll answer all your questions. Yay! So I'm like, I want to do all these hanging out with everyone, and there's only one of me and so many of you guys. But you know, so being able to do that. So I want to thank everyone for being here with our first live chat of the year. And thank you, Paige, so much for being a part of the live chat and the idiot-proof sex tips that we give out. So yay!
Thank you for having me. Really, I enjoyed it.
Okay, and next week, this is a every Monday thing. So every Monday at 9 o'clock Eastern, we will be here with a live chat. So feel free to come back and join us. And thank you very much. And I'm going to end for tonight. So have a wonderful night.
You as well.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Okay.